everybody. Well, welcome once again to another edition of What Do You Believe? I'm so excited to have you here with us as we continue to talking with just some interesting people, fascinating people, getting perspective, insights, asking questions, learning and growing together. And today is no exception. I am excited to talk to you with you to a friend of mine named Miss Lena Hill, and she is a 911 operator. And today we're going to be learning just a little bit about that, talking about that, the perspectives that she has about community, and I'm excited for it. Again, it's so important that we learn to grow and understand one another, to listen to one another's experiences and perspectives, and maybe even, I'm going to take these off, maybe even learn something that we didn't know before. So I'm going to bring Lena in right now. First of all, how are you?
I need my notes. I am good. How are you?
Excellent. Now, because again, this is a little web series and we're just putting it out there for people to learn and grow and gain perspectives and insights and all that. So if you would, tell us, where'd you go? There we are. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and what you do.
I am Lena Hill. I am a Campbell County 911 police and fire dispatcher. I have been there for 24 years.
24
yes.
years. That is...
It's been fast and it's been slow, I'll tell you. 24 years.
So very cool. Well, to start off with, first of all, again, thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming and talking.
You're very welcome. I'm flattered that you chose to interview me.
Oh, it's exciting. So how did you get to be a 911 operator?
Well, that's actually a funny story. I didn't know anything about the profession. I wasn't thinking this is what I wanted to do with the rest of my life or anything like that. I was a waitress. And I used to have a weekly regular group of police officers that came in to be waited on. Mm-hmm. And I'd hear their radio traffic and they'd have to get up sometimes without even finishing their food. And I'd be like, oh, where you going? Big call. You know, I was just teasing them and they had to leave and not eat their food and all this and that. But one day they were like, you talk pretty good. You articulate yourself pretty good. You should come down there and look into being a dispatcher. I'm like, what do they do? What is that? And I got to do I'm going to call it a sit along. Mm-hmm. I got to sit along with the dispatchers that were on shift and see what they do and see what it was all about and hear some radio traffic and hear some things going on. And it really interested me. I was like, this is pretty cool. I didn't even know, I knew the service was needed, but I didn't know anything about it. Mm-hmm. So I just fell in love with it from there. This was May of 1996.
Wow.
So we're going back a little bit.
I remember the 90s.
Yeah. And I had put in an application that they weren't hiring at that moment. So it took me about a year to get the job. But they had a couple of series of interviews and things like that. And you have some tests you have to take, some, passing the background check and stuff like that. So it was May of 96 when I got hired for Newport Police Department.
Wow. So really quick, I'll just interject a little personal story here. When we were up in Michigan, and I was looking to try and stay there instead of leaving the church that we were at and the community we were at, the only job that was actively hiring that would allow any kind of flexibility but still provided benefits was the local 911 dispatch. And they were in desperate need. They said, we've only got 3, we need like 14, we're hiring. So I was there to take the aptitude tests with 7 other people, and they needed 14 total. I was the only person that passed all the aptitude tests. In fact, on the map reading, which was kind of interesting because the maps were backwards, of course, trying to tell them where to go. I was the only person that got that right. They're like, oh, you know how to read a map. They would not hire me because I said, I will work Monday through Saturday whenever you need. I will work Sunday afternoons, but I cannot be here until at least 1 because of church. And they said, nope, we won't do it. And that's what ended up landing me in Kentucky.
one of the first things they tell you is that you have to be very flexible in your scheduling and your hours. I mean, you know what shift you're going to be on, but you have to be flexible at any time to be able to be moved,
Yeah.
night shift or day shift.
Well,
We
I
used
thought
to
it
have
was
a
being
middle shift in
pretty
between.
flexible, saying I'd work 6.5 days a week.
Well, yeah, but
So
they got to schedule you in there for Sundays.
you became a 911 operator. Take us back to the moment your first call came in, and it wasn't training, it wasn't listening, it was somebody's on the phone saying they need help for something. What was it, if you remember, what happened?
Actually, you just took me back, and it makes me laugh because knowing now that I've done this for 24 years, I remember driving down the underpass and crying because I knew that this was my first night shift by myself, because the dispatcher that was on duty would be leaving at 10 and I'm coming in at 10 p.m. and she's going to walk away. She's going to leave me. And it was raining. And I called her from the store about 2 blocks away. And I said, I can't do it. I can't come in. I'm too afraid. And she was like, you are fine. Because I had already been working there, just always had somebody with me. So this was the first shift I was trainer free. And I tried to get out of it. I don't know what I tried to do because I surely didn't want to quit, but I was begging her not to leave me. Don't leave. Trees are going to fall. Electrical wires are going to be down. And I just assumed during a storm that everything that could happen in the world was going to happen while I was there that night. But I tried to get out of my first night, but I did fine. No trees fell and nothing happened.
Did you get any calls that first night?
Yeah, we got a lot of calls. Since I was there by myself, my dogs are going to bark. I apologize. I got a lot of calls, but it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I just made it through that night. And luckily everything was on the non-emergency side of things. But I had no problems. And after that, I had more confidence in myself. That's all I needed to do, was get some confidence in myself. And I knew the job, I knew my abilities, so it all worked out. But there's been some tough nights.
So it was nice that you didn't have any of the big serious stuff. So, of course, a lot of people, if they have any kind of frame of reference at all for a 911 operator, it's going to be from the show, right? Rescue 911.
Right. Yeah.
So, obviously, whenever you watch any kind of program like that, it's always the biggest, the most dramatic, the toughest scenarios, all that. Right. Is that really what it's like?
It's not like that per se, and like the things that the show writes about, the scenarios that the shows write about, that happens. That stuff happens. But I think the results that and people who watch these shows, the results they expect are the killer gets caught, or the suspect is detained peacefully and everybody goes to jail singing Kumbaya. That doesn't happen. They don't run your DNA in an hour and get your match on who broke into your shed. Like people, they call and think, well, you knew who it was. Why isn't he in jail? Well, there's a process. He's innocent until proven guilty in the court system. We can't just go pick him up or like people think road rage. He cut me off. Come and get him. No, we can't do that. We have to see him actively doing these things before we can put him in jail or not put him in jail for that, but give him a citation or something. But I think people think that the outcomes of these shows are like that.
Right. Everything needs to be wrapped
up. The scenarios very may well be.
Yeah. We get in that mentality even with justice, right? That everything needs to be wrapped up very, very quickly. So walk us through a typical shift. Like, what do you do? What are some of the tools? I mean, is it very technological? I've heard, and read stories that it's not. Talk about what it's actually like.
It's a lot more technical than it was in 1996. I'll tell you that. And I'm one of those, who moved my cheese. I don't know if you've ever read that book, but you keep moving my stuff. You keep changing what I'm doing. And I'm an old fogey. I want things to stay the same. I don't want new buttons to push and new ways to do things. But we work 12-hour shifts. There's a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And when we come in at 6 o'clock, we got to be, I come in at 6 p.m. So we got to be ready to go. You got to plug in your headset and get the information from the last dispatcher and be ready to start taking calls. You don't get any, there's no hold all the calls while we transfer shifts and stuff like that. There's none of that. It's get right into it. And the phone's ringing, you got to get it. So usually your day is determined by the first call you get to take. And hopefully it's not going to be a hard night, but we take non-emergency and emergency phone calls. So not only are we, what time is trick or treat, or can I speak with Detective so-and-so about my ongoing case? The next call could be my baby's not breathing, or, my toddler fell in the pool, help me do CPR, or then you can go right back to, when do the times change? We change the clocks back or something like that? But it's fast paced and it's always different. I tell people when they ask me, it's never the same day twice. That's for sure. Nothing, the same types of things happen, but it's not the same. It's just not the same thing day after day after day, like some jobs could be.
So many different splinter questions out of what you just said. So first of all, I remember being taught as a kid to dial 911 in an emergency. And it was like drilled in my head in school, in 4-H, in Boy Scouts. And of course, we didn't have cell phones when I was first learning this, but even with a cell phone, like you dial 911 if it's an emergency. But what's an emergency? A fire, someone choking, someone dying, someone breaking into your house. Not, I fell and scraped my knee.
Right.
But what you just said is that you get calls for when is trick or treating and when do we set the clocks?
Yes, we do. When do we set the clocks back? When's trick or treating? What time one of the favorites is, are they going to pick up my trash since it's a holiday? Or they didn't pick up my trash? I'm sorry, ma'am, you're going to have to call Rumpke for that. I don't know what the trash schedule is. I don't,
Wow.
It can be silly at times, but it gets crazy. But we do non-emergency calls like that. Mm-hmm. And we also, like I said, at the drop of a hat, the next call could be saving someone's life, which is one of the reasons I love my job. Mm-hmm. I really love what I do. Wouldn't be there for this long a time if I hadn't, but we have to transfer people to different services. We also do that stuff too. Mm-hmm. We transfer you to your towing, your car got towed. We transfer you there. We can transfer you to the hospitals. We can transfer you to I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I don't know why. But we do, like when a call comes in, obviously if it's on the 7-digit, phone number, it's a non-emergency usually, but it has happened they know that in their head and that's what they dialed instead of 911. Mm-hmm. So anything can happen on either line.
Wow. But
when we get that call, we have to determine if they need a police officer, an ambulance, or a fire truck, or the whole department. Mm-hmm. So when we determine that, we dispatch them on the police channel or the fire channel, and we have to monitor that call. Like we may have to stay on the phone with people and talk them through CPR or a domestic situation where there was active physical abuse happening. Unfortunately, you may have to listen to some of that if you can't get the parties separated.
Oh, wow.
Till the police get there. So we've had to, I've heard my fair share of things, but and we have to stay on the phone with that, in our ear in the background till the officers get there. And I know when you're in an emergency, it seems like 30 seconds is 10 minutes, but sometimes it's like a minute or two gone by and you have to stay on there for reassurance, that they are coming, ma'am. I promise, sir, the ambulance is on the way, but here's what we're going to do in the meantime. You need, if someone had a seizure or something like that, roll them on their side. And so we have pre-arrival instructions for police and fire that we have to do if we have to stay on the line and render those types of aids to the people until their help gets there. But if we have like a active call that's going to be up for a couple of hours, like a structure fire, you're always asked, you're not currently on the phone with anyone anymore, but you're always asked on the channel, call the Red Cross, get us, they bring canteens for the firemen and stuff like that, or get us Duke Energy. They have to have the electric shut off to the house and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it happens. All kinds of different things happen on any line. So we have to be ready.
So now, how do you go from a call emotionally, I guess, and mentally, from they didn't pick up my trash to my child is not breathing back to when is trick or treating? Like, how do you make that kind of switch?
It's very easy, I would say, in my brain now, because I'm programmed. I don't want to say it like that, but I'm not programmed to just shut it all out, but I am experienced enough to shut it all out. There are some new hires that ask the same kind of questions. What do I do to not still be upset that this baby drowned, mm-hmm. and go on to the next thing? And the only advice I've always given myself, this is just my personal experiences I'm talking from, the only advice I've ever given myself is to just give thanks to God that it's not your child, and that you're getting to go home. I don't mean that to sound selfish at all. I just mean that's how I have to, I have to go home, and I have shed a lot of tears over other people's children that I don't even know, because of scenarios and the way things have turned out. But I just say thank you that I get to go home to my family and my child.
So it's almost like a coping mechanism where you learn to kind of compartmentalize it so that you don't continue to dwell on it.
And some people have that and some people don't. It's not the job for everybody at all. I know my daughter's been interested in wanting to maybe look into that field, and I'm discouraging her from that because I know how hard it is. Right. I know how long the days are, how long the nights are, and she's pretty too sensitive, I guess I would say, for that type of thing. Knowing what I know, had I not known any of this or had 24 years experience, I'd say, oh, that would be wonderful. That sounds like a great career move. And it is, it really is, but not for some people. Yeah. It's not, it's hard to shut it off. It's hard to go home and sometimes we don't even know. We had a dispatcher the other day. I don't know if you've seen it. She was on the radio or on the news for helping deliver a baby on the side of 471. So she got some kudos for that, but we go home and not even know, did I deliver a boy or a girl? I have no idea what happened. Did everybody make it to the hospital safely? I mean, the squad took them, yes, but that doesn't mean they make it in certain cases. I don't know if the guy that was having difficulty breathing that I had to talk to for 10 minutes till a squad gets out there, down out in the county, that's possible sometimes. It's 10 minutes, unfortunately, but I don't know if he made it or not. Maybe a couple of days later, I'll ask a fireman that might be working again. Mm-hmm. But after they transport him to the hospital, we don't even get names on a lot of calls. So I can't even, I don't even know how Bob is doing, so to speak. Right. Which is, it hurts my heart sometimes. But if I really, really, really want to know, I can always find out. But,
you have to learn to just not take it personally. Right.
Right. You can't take it personal because you don't get the outcome of anything. And you're really just doing your job. So there's no attaboy, so to speak, or good job on that. I mean, we get praise like that, but I'm just saying it's not rewarding if that's what you're looking for. If you want somebody to tell you, that was awesome, but that's your job. So it's like, people say that and pat you on the back and tell you took a call great, but it's like, thanks. That's what we are all in here to do.
Wow.
But you can't get clogged up with the what ifs.
I can certainly understand that. Talk about the decision-making process that you have to go through. A call comes in, and again, sometimes you get information from one perspective. Like I just saw a story today, was reading a story about 2 calls to 911 at the same time at a domestic dispute that happened at a hotel. I believe it was out somewhere on the East Coast, but I don't remember. But the office manager was calling in and saying that what was happening. At the same time, the wife or girlfriend of the customer who was in the fight was calling in and saying, they're
Right.
attacking us, they're attacking us. And the office manager's like, this crazy guy's attacking my employee. And you're getting two different sets of information, right? So you're on the phone, you don't necessarily know exactly what's going on. You don't know the situation and the layout of where things are and all that usually. So you have to make a decision. Who do you call? Who do you send? What do you do? What advice are you giving them over the phone? How do you determine what to do? Is it a standard checklist of this is what you do, or do you come up with that on your
There's
own?
not a there's not a standard checklist because everything you need to say to people on every call is different. You know, you might have a prowler in your house or a burglar in your house and you're hiding in the closet. I'm not going to tell you to come out. I'm going to keep you on the phone so you can tell me his or her every move,
Mm-hmm.
and what's going on, so I can relay that to the officers as quickly as possible. But then the next prowler may be able to run out the door or ran out the door without me even telling them to. So now we're going to talk about there's different questions to ask that person because they're outside of the house safely. So you have to just take it as it comes into you. You have to take it as the call comes into you based on what it is and what they say,
Mm-hmm.
because it'll be different from call to call.
Mm-hmm.
But the scenario you just gave, we do have that happen a lot where I'm on the phone with the female party of a fight and she's telling me that he did this and he did that. And she just sat there and did nothing to deserve not that anybody deserves any of this, but you know what I'm saying? This is what she's saying to me. And
Mm-hmm.
another dispatcher sitting 10 feet away from me has the male saying, she burned all my clothes and threw everything I own out the door. And she hit me first or something like that, to where all you are trained to do is get that information out there. Mm-hmm. You want to get that out there. You want to tell all the officers that are responding. Most calls like that would be 2 officers. If there's, a couple parties involved, but if there's 4 or 5 people having a brawl, you send everybody you can or anybody that's in the area, mm-hmm. Whoever's on shift that night. But you just tell them, I have the female complainant on the phone and another dispatcher has the male complainant on the phone. They're both claiming physical contact was made on, by both parties. So you just want to say everything. The times that you will find yourself in trouble is when you say nothing or not enough. Get it all out there. I don't care if you sound like you're on the karaoke mic for the night. Get it out there. Say what they're saying so the officers know, especially if weapons are involved. They may be bickering back and forth and she's like, well, yeah, you pulled a gun on me. Oh, wait, hold on. What? Who has a gun? What's going on now? So that changes everything obviously they're responding lights and sirens to something like that. But sometimes that makes the difference in a light and sirens response. If weapons are involved or if anyone's injured, needs an ambulance, we're dispatching all that at the same time. Right. So you just have to prioritize, I guess that would be a word, to know what that person needs. You might not need me to tell you CPR. If your grandfather stopped breathing, you may know it and you may be able to say, I know what I'm doing, just stay on the phone with me. That might be all you need. And sometimes people can't breathe and you're like, you don't have to talk because you can't breathe. So just I'll count sometimes, breathe, 1, out 2, something like that. So there's always the calls that you have to stay on that where they're
I was always taught you do CPR to stay alive.
Yeah. That's right.
I've never actually tried that on anybody because I think that would be a little crass.
Yeah, we sing that a lot in our CPR recertifications while we're pumping on the dummy, while we're pumping on the dummy's chest.
Oh,
yep, staying alive. That's it. That's the beat that you need to do your compressions. Mm-hmm. So it works.
So what would you say are some of the most common things that you get phone calls for?
Loud music, loud parties. Are we pre-Corona or right now we're in Corona? So now we're getting there's more than 10 people over here at this party and no one's wearing masks, which, that's their concern for the day. That's what they needed. So that's what they call for.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting a lot of mask calls. We're getting a lot of too many people together, too many people being loud.
Mm-hmm. And can you do anything about that? Like, I know that there's in Kentucky where we are, there's a mandate where we're supposed to be wearing masks, but I mean,
there's a noise ordinance, don't get me wrong.
I'm sorry?
If there's a noise ordinance in most cities, so if you're doing something that makes enough noise that causes a disturbance, if you're blaring your music at 2:00 in the morning in an apartment complex, they're going to make you shut it off or ask you to shut it off. But if you're loud out in your backyard having a barbecue, no, we're not going up and making sure you're all from the same household and quarantined together. Or if you've got the neighbor over here you're not supposed to be with, they're not doing anything to that extent. At least where I dispatch for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about things always change?
People that are still shooting fireworks off well after the 4th of July? Can we have them thrown in jail?
We still have them shooting fireworks off. It's July 14th.
I know. And I'm gonna wonder.
It started. It started like week before.
You and I will hurt you if you do not stop. I digress.
And the big ones, the M80 ones, the big firecrackers that sound like guns. So we're getting a lot of gunshots fired, which is happening to turn into being the big loud fireworks. But yeah, everybody's tired of that too. Everybody's calling in for fireworks, especially that weekend. And that weekend, you're kind of like, well, it's 4th of July, let them, as long as it's not 3:00 in the morning, let them go if they're celebrating. But some people get mad at that stuff.
Absolutely. Now, what about
say? We'll let them know. We'll let the officers know.
Pre-COVID, was it different before that?
There goes the mask calls and the too many people congregating together. I apologize again for my dog, but barking dogs. That's the most. We have a lot of fights. I don't know if you're wanting me to go like with more serious calls, but we have domestics and fights and trivial.
I'm thinking, if you work a 12-hour shift, shift, and let's say you take, I don't know how many calls you take on average, but let's just throw out, 50 total. Hopefully it's not that much. That might be a little busy, but if it's 50 total, are 40 of them all noise calls and dog calls, or is that just the most, but there's a lot of other stuff?
They're domestics and fights probably round out the evening. Somebody's not getting along with somebody every minute. Not every minute, but like, if I'm going to do on a basis of 50 calls, I would probably have to go with 30 of them being police attention needed for some type of disturbance, some type of somebody's not getting along with somebody or somebody's causing a problem call, which we call disturbances. But that would probably be at least 30 of the 50.
So now I'm gonna deviate here for just a moment, and then we'll come back because of what you just said. And of course, having done this for over 20 years, you've heard a lot, you've experienced a lot. Right now, of course, there's a lot of talk about what to do with police and police reform and all those sorts of things. And one of the things that I've heard several people talking about on different news channels is the idea of having not just a police response, but drug counselors and therapists and things like that. Do you think, from your perspective, like that might be a viable alternative instead of sending a police officer, sending a counselor to some of these people if they're not getting along?
I'm going to say no as my answer to that question. While some of those resources, those people that do those positions are greatly needed, not at the same time or in place of a police officer. We have, the police officers are equipped with the resources to get you someone like that. But 9 times out of 10, if you have the police there because your boyfriend is arguing and he's in the other room and the cops have you out in the hall trying to get both sides of the story, you don't want a counselor on scene to try to be there at that moment. An aftercare specialist or something like that is absolutely needed. But that's someone an officer can give you a card for, or hook you up with their phone number to call in the morning or something like that. But to respond actively or police, I don't think that's anything that, at the moment, plus then they'd have to wear, would they have to wear bulletproof vests? Would they have to be outfitted with a gun? Would they, you have to think of all that stuff. But if you came to my house with a counselor wanting to talk to me right in the middle of my crisis, I don't want to talk to you. I'm not ready to talk to anybody yet. Let me cool down. Let me calm down. And the police are there to do that. They are there to diffuse the situation, get both sides of the story. And now if one of them has to leave for the night, one of them is asked to leave. If it's my house and not my boyfriend, he doesn't live here, obviously he's out the door for the night. But I don't think that, those services are always available to people, but I don't think it needs to answer your question, I don't think that's something that needs to go along with the police being called, because they have all of those capabilities to connect you with those resources. If someone needs to talk to a pastor, if someone wants to talk to the Red Cross, if someone wants to talk to a different police officer, or anything like that, we can connect them. We know we have resources for mental health. We have resources for homeless people. Like anything that they need, the police can get it to them or get them connected with getting the help. But a lot of people don't want that kind of help. They want their situation they're in at that moment to be dealt with. And we have, officers
perspective, because again, I think that's what's lost in the conversation. Because I listened to that in terms of the talking heads. I think, well, that makes sense. Having a drug counselor who's there to deal with somebody instead of just Narcanning them 10 times in a night or whatever. Which
right,
but you're right.
Those resources are given to those people. Those resources are available to those people, especially if they need to be transported to the hospital. The hospital can further help them.
Right.
If they
what I've found in terms of ministry is that what you were just saying is so true. If somebody's not ready, it doesn't matter what resources you throw at.
Right.
If they're in a domestic situation, if they're in a drug situation, whatever it is, they want the immediate thing fixed, but they're not ready to talk about the next step. They have connecting. So that's excellent. Excellent. All right. So coming back to what you do, what are some of the fun calls, if you could call it that you get to send people out for? Or do you get
I don't know. I don't know that I have. I don't know that I have any fun calls. It's always nice to have, the lighthearted things. I wouldn't call these calls, but we have people that just want to call and say, "Hey, you guys are doing a great job," or "I saw Officer so-and-so on a news story. That was awesome." People call and say stuff like that, or I want to tell the Newport police officer so-and-so that he came to my house and he talked to my friend or whatever. He talked to me and I've done this advice. I took his advice and he's a really great officer. Those are always fun to get, but no one calls us for any good reason. But that getting into this career, no one's going to call and say, "Hey, I just want to let you know it's my birthday." That doesn't happen, and nothing like that. They're calling in their worst time, or, when they're having their worst moment to them. And I'm sorry, I don't have anything fun.
Well,
I can't think of anything
Here's
fun.
why I asked that question, because I remember as a kid one time I was at a birthday party and it was teenagers mostly, but the adults had left so the kids could all have fun. And one of us, I don't remember who, got in their mind, it'd be so cool to have the fire department come with the
Yeah.
truck and the hose and everything like that. So we just called 911 and asked if anybody was available.
How'd that work? Did they come?
Oh, somebody came, all right. We got this is a serious thing and you should not do that. So I was just,
Yeah.
do you have anybody that just calls to talk like they're lonely? And so I'll call
Oh
911.
yeah. Yeah, we have well, a couple of names come to the top of my head. We have a guy that just likes to say what he wants to say, and you don't get to say nothing. Sometimes it's good things, which sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not funny, and you're like, okay, sir, okay, sir, okay, sir, have a nice night, and that's it. But back to what you just said a second ago, we do have events that the fire department holds for Touch a Truck, and the police have actually coming up just here in August. They'll have a big carnival. They have meet and greets and stuff like that where they do fun things. I was just talking as a dispatcher.
Right.
I can't think of a fun type of call. But we do fun things. We do all kinds of things for the community and stuff like that are fun.
Do you ever get to help set anybody up? Like you send a specific officer to so-and-so and it's because, their boyfriend's going to propose to them or anything like that?
I wish that would happen to me. I've seen several and I'm like if they call me, we do like a scenario of a traffic stop so we can propose. I've seen them happen. I'm like, nobody ever calls me for that.
I just think there are so many ways you could mess with people in this job.
Yeah.
So now staying in that vein, do you ever mess with people are there certain officers or firefighters or EMTs or whatever that you're like, I'm going to just mess with them a little bit?
There's there's that once in a while officer that makes you mad because of his activity out on the streets, because you're also taking their incoming activity that they're facing out on the streets too, like traffic stops and accidents, or a lot of accidents. We get accident calls a lot. I forgot to tell you that. I didn't even think about that. But we have the one, that makes us mad for the day that we're like, you're getting all the reports. They call that the PRC, the permanent report car. So sometimes we're like, I'm going to give you all the reports, or I'm going to send you on something I make up, like a barking dog at 10th and Park. Just to give them something to do to make them shut up.
But you have done that. There's no barking dog, but
yes, but shh,
a barking dog.
I don't want them to know I've made stuff up, but I've been known to a time or two, especially back in the day when everything was, less technology tracked. Mm-hmm. And nobody could come in and say, did you make that call up? There was no call that came in like that. I'm like, shh. I don't know what you're talking about.
You're on your cell phone telling yourself that.
Exactly.
Oh, goodness. All right. Now, going to the other side of the aisle here, the serious stuff. Obviously, I know you can't share a lot of details with some of these things, but what are maybe a couple of things that were just like difficult, hard?
Yeah.
Give us a war story or two.
The things that, well, I have a couple things that I still carry with me, and they were quite a few years ago, many, many years ago. An active shooting that took place while I was on the phone. We were already rendering aid to a lady on the phone. We were already telling her how to aid her husband's wound because he was shot when he was allegedly, this is all allegedly, I'm not going to, say for sure or not, but she was tending to her husband's wound because her son accidentally shot him. Mm. And then I hear a gunshot go off and she starts screaming, blood-curdling screams because the son shot himself too, right in front of her. Mm. So that one sticks with me. I can hear her scream in my sleep. I can hear her begging him not to do it because I guess right in front of her, he's getting ready to do it to himself, and she's already had it accidentally happen to her husband. So he was so distraught at what he accidentally did that he took his own life too. I have goosebumps on my skin right now because I can hear that. I can hear her, and that was at least 15 years ago. So those things are really hard. And that's when we do have, we do have counselors, we do have peer support. We do have, hey, you need to step away, you need to go home for, whatever, depending on, how bad a scenario affects us or something, not a scenario, but a call affects us. I have a 4-year-old little girl's voice who is in my head every day. I think I'm getting a little choked up. I'm sorry. I have a little 4-year-old girl's voice in my head every day, saying, what's wrong with my daddy's head? What's wrong with my daddy's head? Because he shot himself when she walked in, when she came home with the grandmother. They just walked in the door coming back from, I assume, the grocery store, and he shot himself in the head in the recliner. So as soon as they walk in the door, there's her dad. And all she kept saying was, what's wrong with his face? What's wrong with his head? And the grandmother, I'm like, please take her outside. Please take her outside. So I hear that a lot, not every day, but I hear that a lot. When things get tough, I go back to those two voices. And the lady, I had a transmission. I was in the middle of pushing the button on dispatching a squad. And I had a little old lady on the other line that came upstairs that morning and found her husband deceased. Probably died in his sleep overnight, natural causes, but she was blaming herself while I was getting my buttons pushed and, typing up what has happened to this man and the situation, still in bed. Just as an example, I can't remember the specifics. 79-year-old man, found deceased in bed, cold to the touch, CPR not being done. I'm typing all that up. She's talking to God, and she says, it's my fault. It's my fault. Please don't take my husband. Please don't take my husband. It's my fault. I should have brought his oatmeal up to him sooner. Because she's coming upstairs with the tray for breakfast, and something delayed her. So she's blaming herself, talking to God that she should have done something differently. And hearing her, I'm actively talking, pushing the button, and I'm like, respond to, and I start crying. I had to have a coworker get off, said, let go of the button, let go of the button. Off to my side here, she said, let go of the button. And she picked up her button because she can do the same thing I can do from a different station. And she finished my transmission because I started crying hearing this lady talk to God, asking him not to take her husband and blaming herself because she didn't come up with the oatmeal. So it's, it can be pretty tough. So I hear those 3 people among a few others I won't keep talking about, but a few things that are tough to listen to.
Do you find that it's harder with a certain segment of people? Like, is it harder if it's a kid that's either involved or on the phone, or an older person that maybe doesn't fully understand what's going on, or things like that? Or is it just, when it's a tragedy, it's a tragedy? How does that?
Well, true though. When it's a tragedy, it's a tragedy. But when it happens to children, when things happen to children, I get it, I guess, more infuriated because they can't stand up for themselves, or animal abuse, or something like that. So the people that can't help it or get out of the situation easier than a able-bodied adult would be able to. That's what bothers me.
Right.
Those bother me the most.
Yeah. What are some of the outcomes? Like, do you ever, you mentioned that you don't usually get to know, but are there ever times where you find out what happened? Like there's a kid, or somebody was injured, or there was a gunshot, and you do get the rest of the story. And how does that happen? Do you have to go seek that out? Do they ever come to you?
Sometimes we have to seek it out if we really want to know something. But I know the other day we were handling a missing adult out in the Alexandria area, and that was on the news. That was the next day. There was search and rescue was actively looking for this gentleman up until like 1:00 in the morning, and I worked till 6. So, nothing came about. We had his description out to every agency, and we rode the railroad tracks with gators. Well, not I didn't, but you know what I mean. They rode the railroad tracks on gators trying to find this man, and we did everything we could do until we couldn't see outside anymore, and it was too late to keep on going. But the next day I asked the next shift, did they find him? And thankfully they did. They did find him, a little dehydrated and, tired, but he was found okay. So those are always good things. And sometimes you find out that they didn't find him okay. And honestly, I'm not trying to sound coarse, but you just have to show up for work the next day and just keep on doing what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's, I'm not on the same level at all, but I equate it, what you're describing, a little bit to like when you're pastor and, sometimes you counsel them and the marriage still falls apart. So you just have to kind of put that aside and go on and counsel the next folks. Sometimes you go on a hospital visit and the person dies. You just got to go to the next room and be positive and energetic.
Absolutely. And yeah, it is like ER doctors, or brain surgeons. The one may make it and the one may not. And you have to just keep on going. You're going from, one appointment to the next or one call to the next. And, there's nights where nothing bad happened, nothing bad happens, a couple of traffic accidents with no injuries, and a fight where the husband's just like, oh, I'm just going to go away for the night. And, that night they're fine. Everybody's separated and, no more calls there that night. We have some places we've been to several times a night, because they don't listen to the police. But, you just have to keep on going, one call to the next. And you don't know what's on the other line. I mean, I'm saying Campbell County 911, where's your emergency? And sometimes it's a trivial something, but sometimes immediately, I need help. You can tell by the tone. And then there are some people that get crazily excited over, okay, man, we can help you with that. All I need to do is this or that. But to them, they think that's the worst thing they faced. I mean, you think about it. If you have to call 911 as soon as we end this interview, if you have to call 911, that's the worst minute for you. That something just happened to you that has just put you in your worst minute, worst hour, worst day, whatever. So no one calls for anything happy in our field. But that's why we do what we do. We want to help you in your worst time, your worst minute. And we're very happy to send you an officer or an ambulance or, the fire department, because we want your immediate situation to be saved or stopped or whatever, however you want to word it. But that's why we want to be there for people. It's very rewarding to get to know, and I don't even have to know the outcome of every call, but I know that I did my best at it with how I've been trained in my knowledge of common sense, I guess, that I did the best I could do. I got them the resources quick as I could. I stayed on the phone and gave them all this information based on how I was trained, and that makes me happy. I'm ready to go on to the next thing. That's how I handled that. This is how I'll handle this.
Right. You talked about it being rewarding, but again, when you don't know the outcomes, a lot of times, like what leads you to come back for 20 plus years and keep doing this 12 hours at a time, day after day? Like, what is it that motivates you? What is it that's rewarding is it the sense of, I got to help people today, or it's just exciting? Is it an adrenaline rush? Is it a little bit of both? Is it the cake that's in the break room? What is it?
I wish there was some cake in the break room, but yeah, it's the reward. I mean, it's not having to know an outcome to be happy about it. I don't have to know if you had a boy or a girl to know that I helped you deliver your baby. So I'm rewarded in myself, and and pats on the back and coworkers saying that was awesome, you did a good job, or whatever. But it's rewarding to know that I'm there for people that need me. I want to be there for people that need those kind of services. I mean, there's people that are there for people's, I'm glad somebody's there when I want my cheeseburger. So it's kind of, I'm just proud of my profession. I'm proud of what we do. I'm proud of my coworkers. There's some that are family. We're a big fat family. You know, even with the officers, I look to them like they're my brothers or sisters, you know.
Mhm.
Any one of them would do anything for me in a heartbeat. So it's the family aspect and feeling like you belong to something that's a little bit bigger than yourself.
Mhm.
That helps people, makes me feel good.
That's awesome. So the program is called what you believe, or what do you believe? So for with that in mind, what do you believe about what you do that is something that maybe other people might not know or understand or recognize?
Oh, I that's a tough question.
I've tried not to put you on the spot, but we
Yeah,
got to do a little introspective here.
I I think I'm going to answer this in a little bit kind of reverse, if I'm thinking right. I believe. Can I say what I wish I believe, or
Sure.
I believe? I believe that people think we sit in there and do nothing. They think we sit in there and watch TV with our feet up, and officers bring us coffee and donuts. We don't even see police officers. We don't even see them. We are in the Newport Police Department, but we don't see. They get in their cars, they leave. We're in a totally different part of the building. They don't come over that way. We just strictly talk to these people by radio. So there's no massages in my chair from an officer or a fireman or anything like that. I just wish, I think that their take on what we do, like
Mhm.
I wish I could do like a public service announcement, or maybe even this interview is what I'm talking about, to let people know what we do. I mean, we do care. There's been some, nationwide covered cases where horrible things have happened to people, and it's at the dispatcher's fault.
Mhm.
Um, but I can guarantee you that that person is devastated. That
Mhm.
person is devastated for what happened. We're devastated for the bad things that happen, but that's not all of us. All of us. I'm not a bad dispatcher. My coworker's not a bad dispatcher. We're not all bad.
Right.
The police officers, because they're facing so much right now. That the if I can bring it up, the George Floyd case, that is a horrible event that took place. That is terrible. But that
Mhm.
is not every police officer. That is not all of them. That is not all the firemen, that get bad raps for how they handle stuff. And I just want them to believe that, to know that we're just human beings too. After I clock out, I go to Kroger and get groceries and put food on my table and have dinner with my family, just like you did.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I can answer and I believe. It's maybe I wish they believed. I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, you're exactly right in what you're saying. And as I've been talking to several different people, I've made this comment a couple of times that multiple things can be true at once in situations. It can be true, you mentioned the George Floyd case. It can be true that was terrible and it shouldn't have happened, and that officer was way out of line and probably
Absolutely.
deserves everything that he's going to get. It can also be true that other officers care about the community, want to help people, are there for the right reasons, right? Both of those can be true at the same time.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of people lately that see black or white. They don't see the gray in the
Mhm.
middle, which I'm a gray in the middle type of person all the way, because I hate that officer. I don't hate all of them, or I hate this person, this racist group or whatever, but I don't hate all people like that.
Right.
I don't know. I wish I could have an I believe for you.
Well, I believe that what
I
you
believe what I do is extremely important.
yes,
I believe it is a needed field that is not going to go out of style anytime soon.
mhm.
Um, People are always going to need help. But, I mean, technology changes and things like that. We just had training this week on a new phone system or a new radio system coming in. All the radios are changing to a different megahertz or whatever it is.
Mhm.
So things are changing. Times are changing. I mean, we used to write things down with pen and paper back in 1996 and then type it in the computer later. Now you have to type it at the speed of the person telling you something.
Right.
So I know that we're needed, and I know that I mean, I want to be needed.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to be needed, but I don't want bad things to happen to you to make you need me. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
in that in that vein, as I know we're wrapping up and I don't want to keep you just on and on, but you mentioned the technology changing. I've again seen stories about sometimes the difficulties with 911 systems,
Yeah.
and how outdated and antiquated they can be. And of course, with technology being what it is, everybody's got these, but sometimes people just take for granted the fact that, like, my wife, if she wants to know where I am, she does find my iPhone, she can figure out where I am with like a 6 foot radius.
Yeah.
But sometimes people just assume that I call 911, you're going to know where I am, you're going to know who I am, so that if I can't talk, like there's a bad guy coming after me, I'll just dial and be like on the sly.
Right.
That's not really how it works, right?
No, not at all. Technology is improving. There is something called Smart 911 now that we promoted last year at the police officers carnival for back to school. But that is more information is put into what comes up on the phone screen when you call 911. Say you call 911 from your residence, landlines. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
Some people still have them. But if you call 911 from a landline, it's going to say, Devin Croner, this address, this phone number. I don't have to guess. Apartment 5 or whatever. There's no guess. I'm sending them exactly to that place. If you call from your cell phone, you may be in that home, but I have no idea.
Right.
I have to take your latitude and longitude if you can't talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
I have to take your latitude and longitude and plug it into my map. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that gives me the cell tower that is closest to you, not even where you live at all. It's not even on your street. So to get it there, there's other things that we can do on our end to pinpoint, but sometimes it's not going to pinpoint you at your address. It might have a 600 meter radius, and you're out in a field.
Right.
And we're looking for you at your house.
Which you may not think is that big of a deal, but if it's a matter of life and death.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I mean, technology is advancing all the time. So I'm probably sure within a week or two, I'll be going back to work and they'll be like, oh, well, this is new and that's new. Have you ever heard of this? You need to learn how to use this. And I'm like, what is this? What is all this stuff? So, but all it is to improve my job and the way that I can help you faster, better.
So on one side, I see, the need for the technology and the refinement of it to be able to respond to legitimate situations. Again, you get a child who is at home and somebody's breaking into their house, or they can't wake up mommy or whatever, and being able to pinpoint exactly where they are and send somebody immediately. That's important. And so you could, on one side, make the argument that we need that level of technology for you to be able to do your jobs and the right response.
Right. I mean, we've resorted to, let's say we've had a 4 or 5-year-old child on the line, and mom and dad's fighting inside, like you mentioned. He doesn't know his address. He knows he lives in Bellevue, but he doesn't know his address. He lives by the ice cream shop or something. That's what this kid's going to know, So we've had dispatchers. I haven't needed to do this. I haven't taken this type of call, but I've been sitting alongside coworkers who are like, can you get a piece of mail? Is it safe for you to walk out into the garage and give me your license plate number? Something like that, a piece of mail or something with their address on it, or walk outside and look at the house number. Maybe he knows the street, but not the numbers. We have to tell him maybe where to look for the address. Look outside by your door, or look in your yard on a sign, or, something like that to get their addresses. And it usually works. I mean, those type of things, you grab a piece of mail or go look at your license plate, is a great way to find out where somebody is if they can't tell you their address. So we use all kinds of things in our head, walk down to I wouldn't ask a 4 or 5-year-old to walk down to the corner, but an older child, a teenager or something, walk down to the corner, and when the officer passes, flag them down, something like that. We're not going to stop if that helps. We're not going to stop trying to find you. We're going to stay on the phone with you until we do. Whether we have to, and sometimes, I just did this 2 times in one night. The night before last, I had to use a cell phone carrier's help in pinging your phone every 15 minutes and letting me know where you're at. If you're on the move. That was for a suicidal male, and a different domestic situation where they threatened to kill themselves and took off in the car. We pinged both of these two different calls. We pinged both of their cell phones and found out an address where they were, which wasn't in our city, but we called the next county over, let them know what's going on, excuse me, and get them rolling to go to the house and check on him. So everything ends up okay.
Now, what about the people that would be on the other side and say, this is privacy, and if you can just ping my phone and find out where I am, how do I know that you're not doing that, all the time? I mean, I know you're not sitting around looking for opportunities to, bust my
right.
Pants, but what would be the response in your mind to that argument about we don't need to give that level of technology. We don't need to give that level of resources to these people. If somebody needs to call for help, they're going to call for help.
Right. Well, we're not able to ping your phone just for fun and giggles. We have to there's paperwork that needs to be filled out. I can't just make a phone call and find out where Devin Croner is. It's not going to work. I mean, your wife has that ability, not me. If I wanted to ping someone's phone, there's a process you have to go through, and there's forms you have to fill out that you're needing it for a life or death purpose. The first question that cell phone carrier company asks you is knowing this information, is finding out this information based on someone's life or death. And if I say no, they're not able to ping the phone. There's hoops to jump through, so to speak, and it has to be a life or death situation. For us to be able to even have that information. And it's only given to us for a short amount of time. If you turn your phone off, it's over with, and I don't know where you're at all. But I can find out if it's on, and I can find out if what area you're in. I can get it down to an exact address. But it takes a while, and it's nothing immediate. It's nothing that just pops up on the screen, because sometimes people just holler at us. They like to yell at us a lot. But sometimes people holler at us that, get them here now, you know where I'm at, and they hang up. Well, we got to call them back. And if they answer, I mean, sometimes I just know that, hey, please respond and check the 900 block of Roberts for a guy yelling. Because I pinged him to the block. I don't know what address he might be in. So officers, then they go rolling down the block with their windows down, trying to see if they hear any kind of commotion going on. And until we find them. So we're not gonna quit on you.
Wow. So what would you say to people, like, keep this in your mind if you are ever experiencing an emergency, and you call, keep this in mind to make sure that we are able to get to you, to help you, to provide the assistance that you need?
That is a good question. And I want people to keep in their mind that when we say 911, where's your emergency, we need the location. The sooner you can spit out your location, the faster your help comes to you. We need the location. That's the most important thing. Where is your emergency? We need to know where it is. So there's no guesswork. So there's no guessing game. They're immediately going to 401 East 5th Street, for whatever type of call. There's no guesswork. And the next thing we need to know, well, we'll ask you, because usually your cell phone number is the only thing that shows up. Cell phone in city usually shows up. So I've got your cell phone number as 999-9999 and verify that. So if we get disconnected, I have got your phone number to try to call you back, and I have got your location. I don't ever have to talk to you again if I have your location. I want to talk to you more. I want to find out, for everyone's safety involved, where you are and what's going on. But if I got your address, I don't need anything else. I can just get on the radio and send 2 units to that address, or a broken line. We lost connection, unknown problem. And I have absolutely no problem doing that. And they'll go there and they'll figure out what the problem is, and then they'll tell me, dispatch, this was whatever. I can't think of anything off my head other than a domestic. This was a domestic, and all parties have been advised and they're separated for the evening, So
it doesn't matter if it's a fire, if grandpa's having a heart attack, if, the baby's choking, you call. tell you where you are and the phone number, and then ideally what the problem is, so that you don't
Right.
want to send the police and then 4 minutes later the fire department's on the way if that's what's needed.
Right.
But
I want you to tell me everything. Tell me everything you want to tell me
mhm,
about what's going on in your emergency state. Tell me all of it. But if you can only tell me one thing, tell me where you're at.
mhm.
And I will
My
roll
pizza is
I
cold.
will roll you everything because I don't know. I will send you police. I will send you an ambulance because they always say it's better to send too many than not enough.
Right, yeah. What about if I call and my pizza's cold?
We've had that a lot. You're going to have to call Domino's, sir.
Hmm. Are there no, and maybe this was just a scare tactic when I was a kid, but I was told like you could get in trouble for calling 911 and it wasn't an emergency. Is that true, or is that true here maybe?
I have known in my years a couple of parents to be cited for their child, but they knew their child had a phone that kept calling 911 and didn't do anything about it. I
Uh,
mean, I talked to a baby the other day who was goo-gooing and gaga with me on the phone, and I'm like, "Hi, where's mommy?" And then the mom gets on the phone and she's horrified. I had no idea they had my phone. No, we're not going to go cite that person. But the child, this one guy the other day was like, this is the sixth phone I've had to take away from him. I don't know why he had a stockpile of cell phones, but they're what are they called when they're not workable? They're not usable cell phones, but
yeah,
every cell phone can still call 911.
right. The
Every cell
SOS.
phone
Yeah.
can still call 911. He's like, I guess I have to take the battery out of it now. I guess you do. Yeah.
I have had to go over that with my eldest. I gave him an old cell phone that doesn't have a SIM card in it, but it still connects to the Wi-Fi so he can watch YouTube Kids videos, PBS Kids videos. He has a game or two on there, things like that. But he accidentally got to the emergency call thing one day, and he didn't know what it was, and he started freaking out. And he's like, "Dad, what do I push the button?" And I was like, "No, son, you do not push the button." But now that you know that this is here, here's when you would push the button. And so we actually had that
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
So,
Always talk to your kids about when and why and what to say, because that gets they may be potentially calling for you one day in an emergency. So that gets
right,
the needed information out there. Here's why you have to call this number, scenarios of why, what for, and
mhm,
here's what they're going to ask you, and tell them this is your address. Some kids don't know that. This is your address and this is your phone number,
right,
to get help for
mhm,
whatever reasons you want to explain to your children. But a lot of people let them play with old phones. And they don't know. I mean, so we're not going to run out and cite everybody because they gave their kid an old cell phone. But there's people that are like, I don't care if you call all you want. They're, blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, okay, this cell phone number has called here 65 times tonight. I think we need to go talk to the parents.
Well, I mean, all you're doing is getting massages from firemen and eating
Right.
buns.
I
So,
wish. I wish I was.
oh my
I
goodness.
have to come home and massage myself with a little back scratcher thing.
Oh, you deserve better. You deserve better.
Thank
Forget
you.
defund. We need to increase funding, get y'all massage chairs, or
Great.
off-duty firefighters to just be there.
That would be wonderful.
Oh my goodness.
In
Well,
my world, in my perfect world.
thank you so much for
You
your
are very
time,
welcome.
your stories, and your insights. Is there anything else you'd like to share or say?
Um, I can't think of anything. I'm just thankful that you wanted to interview me. It
Yeah.
makes me feel good.
Well,
It makes me feel good that I feel I have a like important or interesting career field that someone might want to know more about. So I feel like I kind of might
totally you do. And
hopefully steer people to wanting to get into the field or know more about it.
yeah, well, then there's people like me that passed all the tests and they still didn't hire him. So, I don't know, but
It's
in the interest of full disclosure, you and I know each other personally. You're part of the church.
yes.
We work together through a wonderful group that you've started called Rocks, and work to help people, and that's fun. But so that's how we know each other. But this is the only way I could get to see your face for the last several months.
I know I had to be with us being in such a close knit space with
Mhm.
really like, we don't even have windows where we are. There's no airflow. There's no nothing. I'm like, I am not going to be the one out about town when everybody else is staying home and only seeing their immediate families, I have to stay home and only see my immediate family. So,
Well, you want to talk about a problem. Imagine if all the 911 dispatchers were sick with COVID and there's nobody to answer the emergency calls.
right. Yeah, no, we don't need that to go on. And
That
we'll
would be
spread it like wildfire in the center because we touch the same things, fax
Mm,
machines, computers. I mean, we do sanitize and we're doing all that and everything, taking all the precautions, but it's just too, I didn't want anything to be blamed on me. Let's just say that. If
I
someone's sick,
get it.
you can't even cough in this world anymore without them yelling and screaming and running 20 feet away from you. So
I know, which can be kind of fun sometimes if you
I
don't want
know.
to go
Yeah. I embarrassed my daughter. She was like, Mom, really? Really? You got to do all that? I'm like, what?
Oh,
Nobody ever paid attention to me coughing before.
just don't cough on the produce and don't cough at
No,
anybody.
no,
That's my,
no.
that's my,
I'm even having that home delivered. I don't even see people at Kroger.
no, that's
I'm literally going nowhere but work.
probably good. Well, again, Lena, thank you so much. I
You're very
appreciate it.
welcome.
Appreciate you sharing. I want
Thank
to
you,
thank
Bill.
everybody for joining us. I hope this was fun and informative, but also just helps you think about your community as well and the people that are out there working hard to make sure that if you have a problem, you're going to get the help that you need.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.